Hello, Prprops here with another video. I will be showing the progress on my Servo skull sculpture. I pull out this video from TikTok because at the time that I sculpted this, I didn't plan on being a YouTube content creator and I just recently started, as you know. So I sold the good pulls from the mold and I kept the bad ones. So this is a bad cast, you can say so you're gonna see me fixing a lot of imperfections here. I will be using my rotary tools with those diamond bits. You can see I poke a hole over there that I got to fix later. I'm gonna give it a coat of filler primer just to see all the imperfections better, and then I'm gonna proceed to sand and fill. Also, yeah, wear a mask, don't be like me over here. Even though the wind isn't blowing it in my face, you still need to take precautions. I'm gonna be patching it up with red putty because it's the most common thing they use, 3D prints. Nobody uses it on bodywork anymore, like on cars. The other day I went to look for it on a auto body shop and they look at me like, what is this guy talking about? Nobody uses that, but it's great for props. I've been using it for years and it's what I love to use, and it's also already available. You can find it at Walmart. I'll be using those diamond beads again with my Dremel tool. These are nice beads because they don't take a lot of material. They're not like sanding drones or anything like that. They're just a little bit of porous and that's it. It takes the right amount at a low speed. I'm using those battery Dremels. They're not too powerful, but they are great for this. For other jobs like this over here that I'm opening up the vents on the eyes, you have to like carve it. Then I use my most powerful 4-dome rotary tool. Here's how it looks so far, and I'm gonna sand that down with a little file to make it smooth. Little bit of more sanding. I'm using 220 grit and then I'm gonna switch to 320. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. I'm just sanding it a little bit, all the major imperfections, because at the end it will still be weather and it will be on that green dark style of the Warhammer 40k universe. I had to fabricate a little stand for the gribbles and beads that I'm gonna glue on it later on. It will just make it easier to handle and paint and detail where they're over there on the stand instead of your hand. You can see here I'm just testing it, and then I'm gonna clamp it like here on the tables. Whenever I have to work with it, I'll take it with me. Now I'm doing the same thing I did to the skull, to all these bits and pieces. These are gonna be kind of like the plasma guns that the Space Marines use. I tried to do like the same design over there because I'm going to attempt the OSL effect later on when I'm painting it. I just got a piece of cardboard for the overspray. It's really cold in Texas right now, so I had to use this heater just to keep the parts warm while I prime them and paint them. A little bit of more sanding just to see where we're at. Right now I'm about to spray it with some Rust-Oleum Chrome Silver, and this is how it looks. This is how it looks on sunlight. It looks so cool, but this is just like the base coat. Here I pull out my reference, credits to the artist. I changed a lot of things of the original design on my sculpture, but I still give credit to him because that's what I use to sculpt my version. I found this color, I thought it looked like bone, so I bought a bunch of them at Walmart. Not sponsored, just something I found and I thought it could work. Here I realized that I need to sculpt with epoxy a little pocket inside the eye because I plan on using LEDs on it. And when I sculpt this pocket, I'm just gonna make a hole in the side of it, and the LED just gonna illuminate the thing, kind of like trapping the light inside and giving the effect that is lighting it up entirely from the other side. And you're gonna see later on how it looks. This is freeform sculpt from Smooth On, but it's the same thing as epoxy sculpt. It's just like a better quality or some more expensive too, but I love it. I use it for everything. It's also great when you have to mount magnets in helmets. It's really easy to just work with it, and you can use water to smooth it out. It also helps stick better. So I'm just gonna be pushing that epoxy into the inside of the eye and just like kind of with my fingers blending it in so it bonds better to the walls. And I'm using this tool to push it back a little bit. Since the thing that I sculpted inside the eye is thin, it's gonna take a long time to cure, so I let it sit overnight, and the next day I was carving it up with my Dremel. And then with this stick I'm just gonna test how the light will be pointing at, if that makes sense. And then I'm using a 5mm drill bit just to be able to put the lead in later. Here you can see it. So I got my metallics ready. I have all the variations I could find. They're acrylics, and here I'm gonna be mixing my own gunmetal. It's gonna be sprayed through the airbrush, so here I'm gonna mix a little bit of my Liquitex airbrush medium. You can use water, this is just like the fancy stuff, but I love it. I always keep like 2 bottles in stock. And you're just gonna mix it 1 part paint and 1 part medium. You can see the color here, looks so good. Adding a couple of drops of water to help with the flow. And I just love that those 2 ounces bottle just screw on my airbrush, so it's really easy to switch. I also can use a lot more paint than the gravity feed, which I own one too, but lately I've been using the siphon feed better. I like them better. And I'm just gonna spray all the metal parts that I want gunmetal color. I will use it as a base, but some of the parts will stay gunmetal. Satisfied with the color, just let it sit down. And I heat it up with the heat gun a little bit off camera. Like I said before, we got a storm and it's super cold even with the heater on. finally brushing on that bone color I just found. Hopefully it looks good. So after a few coats it really started looking good. I'm gonna be switching brushes to reach the tight spaces. This really took a while, but it was starting to look so good. I thought it was worth it, and I love the color too. Like I said before, it was super cold, so I had to lay down in front of the heater for a little bit. And this is what we got for about 3 days. It got pretty bad, and I'm glad I was off those days. I'm not a full-time content creator, so I still had to go to work, but luckily I was off those days. Finally started laying down the metallics. I will be using a variation of bronze, copper, gold, brushed gold, silver, gunmetal, everything that I could find in my stash that was metallic paint. I'll be using it here. Here I'm just applying some black wash with a mini squeeze bottle so that it will get in the crevices and give it some depth. You can see here how we are so far. It's looking good. So I haven't been that long into the Warhammer 40k universe, only about 3 years, but I think this studs means 50 years of service. Let me know in the comments just to be sure. So I'm moving to the back to paint and detail all these silver parts, everything that is a bolt. I could have used real bolts, but I wanted to keep the weight down. So these are just part of the sculpt, that's why I have to paint them individually. So I really don't have a pattern or reference besides the image, but since my design is different, I don't have like a plan or anything to what color use on what parts, so I'm just going with the flow here and just trying to break down. Whenever it looks too much gunmetal, I just try to use different color just to give it contrast. I'm using this brush gold for the eye in the forehead. I love this color so much, but it's nowhere to be found. I think this is the only bottle I have left. This was super fun, but also time consuming, but it was really good to like see how it was coming along little by little. You can see it here, the progress so far. Here I decided to paint some part black. It gave it some kind of like hollow feeling, or maybe like rubber parts. I don't know what the Imperium uses for their Servo skull builds. I just thought it would look cool and make the metallic parts pop out more. Painting this red just to give it a feeling like it's a button, like a knob. You either like push it or twist it, just making it pop from the rest, like giving it some functionality feeling. This is a different type of gold. You're gonna see here in the light how different it looks from the brush on that I used before. So this is how it looks so far, and I'm ready to give it the first seal. I will be using my favorite Mod Podge, the matte version. I use this as a clear coat. I don't know what's different between sealer and clear coat, but I use it as a clear coat every time. It's all I use. And it says matte, but you can see here it still shines. I'm gonna be using some of that Tamiya masking tape because I have to give it some red accents in the neck, and I didn't feel like freehanding them, so I'm using the masking tape just so it would be like nice and smooth without coloring the other parts. that looks perfect. So I'm gonna be mixing more colors on those 2-ounce bottles that I mentioned before. I get these on Amazon and I love them because they just screw right into my airbrush, so it's so easy to just change colors if you need to. And here, as I was testing this part, I just thought it still looked like too much gunmetal together, so I went back to my golds and metallics and chose a color to just paint the base. You can see here how much better it looks already, also giving some little bit of black wash to those lines. I forgot to open up this hole for the hose that goes there later on. You gotta be careful because it's better to do it before you paint, but since I forgot, I had to grind the foam dowel a little bit just so it would get in. And then with my heat gun, just heating it up so I could bend it into a shape that I like. Now I was toying with it, but as soon as I stick it out in the skull, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I think it looks too high and too straight. I don't know, I wasn't feeling it. Here you can see me like trying to make it look good, but I wasn't feeling it. I thought it looked super ugly, so I'm just gonna let it aside and work on other stuff for now. I'm using a variety of bolts in here, different sizes and thickness. I just thought it would look better if I use real bolts on some areas. I started spraying those spikes that goes on top of the head with silver because I still thought I had too much gunmetal. After I finished detailing them with some blacks and metallics, I stuck a piece of wood dowel on it just to make it stronger when gluing it to the head. After I glued the spikes in place, I was ready to work on these bits and pieces. I think I'm gonna call them the plasma coils. I'll be attempting the OSL technique. I'm not a professional miniature painter, so don't judge me if I'm doing it wrong. So let's see how it goes. So I painted white thinking it was the right move, because in my head I'm thinking if I paint white and then spray the blue on top, it's gonna have that glow effect. But then after I finished my skull, I went ahead and watched a tutorial and I saw that I did it all wrong. Like, the miniature painters, they spray the blue first and then highlight with the white. I decided to do the wire through the nose that I saw in my reference, and I found this phone charging cable. It's kind of like braided, so I just cut it up to length and test it out. And I thought maybe if I paint it silver, it will look like the part. Since it's braided, it started coming apart while I was messing with it and doing some tests. So I had to use super glue, kinda like to harden both ends and then sand it down with my Dremel. This will prevent the braided strings to come apart while I was working with it. And then I had to patch up with a little bit of acrylic paint where I drilled the holes for the wire. I started painting the wire silver. I'm using acrylics, same as the rest of the skull. It looks so good, turned out better than I expected. And here I'm just gonna be using super glue to set it up in place. I really like how it looks with it. I'm using these molds to make the lenses for the laser and the eye. I didn't want to use epoxy resin because I didn't want it to wait that long. So instead I used UV resin with red dye, and I'm just gonna leave it on my UV light to cure while I work on other stuff. I'm gonna sacrifice another charging cable because I need some thin wires for the side of the skull. I'm just gonna slice it up with my X-Acto blade and just pull the strings out. I clamped down the wire to the table, and using my drill, I'm just gonna twist it. It's better to twist it up with the drill because it will be perfect at the end. It doesn't work so well when you do it by hand. You can see here the final result. I decided to add some real electrical components, but not functional, just aesthetics. I found some capacitors and resistors just to glue it down and give it a sense of functionality, like I said before, like real electrical parts. Here's another update. This is how it's looking so far. I really like it, but it looks a little bit too clean. So I hopped back on the hose. I made it like an inch shorter, trying to give it like a more like a low profile, because before it looked too high. And I also started detailing it with my blade, later on I'm gonna heat it up so those cuts will open up with the heat. As I heat it up, the foam start opening up, but it still doesn't look good enough. I forgot about the lenses, so here they are cured, and I use a little bit of nail polish on top of them to give it that high gloss finish, because the UV resin didn't cure high gloss for some reason, so I had to sand it down and use the nail polish. And now I'm using my soldering iron with a different kind of tip that I have to melt foam, just hoping for the best because I still don't like it. Also, you gotta be careful when doing this with those fumes. I'm not using a mask here, but you should use a mask. Actually starting to like it better, so here I'm gonna do another test. And now, thanks to the ribs that I did on the hose, it's easier to bend and form, so I'm gonna heat it up once again while it's still in the skull and just hold it in place to see how it looks now. Just kind of holding it down in place until it cools down, and I think yes, it looks so much better. I'm using Hex Flex. I never used this before. I'm using it as primer. I gave it several coats until I felt happy with it, and while I let it dry, I went ahead and sealed the plasma coils because it got a little warmer outside, so I went ahead and did that. Then I decided to glue it and paint it while it was already glued on the skull. And I'm gonna use the dry brush technique with silver paint. Then I switched to that black wash and went through all the lines of the hose. You can see here how much better that looks, and now I like it. So here's the moment of truth. I'm gonna see how that OSL attempt works out for me. I started by laying down some light blue, but I wasn't feeling it, but I still went on with it. It was still too early to judge, and if I don't like it I can just fix it, which is what I'm gonna do later on with a darker blue. So I stopped what I was doing and I switched to a whitewash because I wasn't liking what I was doing. Like I said before, I just used a darker blue to see if I can fix it. and right off the bat it started to look so much better. I used another piece of wood dowel to glue it in place, and while they were both glued on the skull, I started to work with my brush just to give it more shades of blue, kind of like another wash but with blue this time. Again, I use some of my own mix of flat black in my airbrush to darken some spots around the eyes and the nose, just to give it that some sort of like hollow depth, but at the same time trying to be subtle with it, to not use too much, because I really don't like to use a lot of black when weathering. I'm more of like a brown guy. I use different kind of brown shades, like here this is the color I chose, burnt umber. And what I do is like I spray whenever I feel like all the crevices and stuff, and then I use a little damp towel, sometimes with water, and if it's too dry I can use a little bit of alcohol, but you gotta be careful not to rub too hard, because you will get to the bottom layer if you do, so you don't want that. But you can see how it's starting to look better, all dirty and weathered, and since it's sealed you can just wipe it off and go back and do it again if you make some mistakes. I always spray the crevices first and then wipe them down with my towel. Then after I finish all the detail on the crevices, I can freehand the rest of the skull. You just spray and wipe off as you desire until you feel happy. Like I said, you can use alcohol or water and wipe it down and start over again, so don't be afraid. Did a little bit of the same technique that I did on the skull on the metal parts, just kind of like to give it that rusty look, rusty feel. You can see how good it looks after it gets dried. You can just seal it again to save your progress and not mess it up, or you can go back and spray more until you're happy with it. Give him some more of that black wash before I seal it. So this will be the last time I seal it, and then after this I'm gonna start working on the LEDs. This took a while to wire and solder, and I did most of it off camera. I don't know if later on I will do a detailed tutorial, but these are just 3-volt LEDs. They don't require resistor or anything, and they don't even require programming. This is just like 3-volt flashing LEDs, and I just use a variety of 3mm and 5mm for the eyes or the big areas that I want more illumination. So I'm finally on the last details, gluing the lenses before pushing the LEDs in and gluing them into place. Screwing those ornamental bolts. Some of them screw on, others like this I had to glue on because I use a variety of thickness and I didn't have enough of the same. I started pushing on the LEDs into place and my hand barely fit in there, and then setting them up with hot glue. You can see me using tweezers and pliers and all kind of tools just to be able to reach inside the skull. I almost have everything into place and I'm happy with it. It looks so much better than I expected. You can see here a little update how everything looks together with a self-lock switch that I'm testing here. And then I decided to make it more professional and I sculpted this lid off camera too, because it took a while to make. And I'm just gonna give the same treatment that I gave the skull, just different kinds of gold shade and black, and then weather it. And then I'm gonna use screws to bolt it on the bottom of the skull, just to make it look more professional. I just thought in my head like it would be wrong after all this work to just leave it open in the bottom, like exposed. So I just made the lid to make it look better. And also you can fit all these electronics that I'm about to glue onto it, the switch and the battery pack. So it will be easier to remove the batteries, because normally when I do skulls I just glue everything inside the head and that's it. But it's really hard when you have to change an LED or a battery, so I think it will be better if I do this from now on to all my skulls. Plus it's not permanent because you can just unscrew it, change the batteries and then screw it back in. Giving it one last test to see that everything is working properly before screwing it up back together. If you made it this far in the video, I want to say I appreciate you guys. Also thanks for 600 subscribers, it means a lot to me. And here's the finished piece. This is a one-off. It will be for sale on my website, Prprops.com. I will leave a link in the description. I hope you like it. Please let me know how I did on the comments, and see you on the next one.